my friends, welcome. So in this episode, I want to dive deep into the conversation of a kind of difficult topic, also for me. And that is why victims of abuse are not speaking up about it, why they keep silence, sometimes forever, sometimes for decades, sometimes for years. I want to discuss the reasons why. And this is also a challenge for myself because, yes, I'm one of these. And in the last days, I realized that these reasons also stopping me or did stop me. And this is exactly why I want to do this video now. Like, I have to do it. And I want to explain, maybe if you have been a victim, maybe if you are in this position of wondering why is it always happening to you? Why can you not speak up? Or you're somebody who is wondering why people cannot speak up about it, because theoretically they could do it, right? And just a little disclaimer in the beginning, like, really important. I'm not a therapist, I'm not a counselor, I'm not a therapist. I'm a woman who experienced these things I'm talking about and who was always interested in psychology. So I learned really early on a lot of things about psychology. And especially in the last 5 years on my own healing journey, in my own really intense facing things journey, I learned so much about everything, and I have this deep desire to share that and to help other people who have no idea yet about all these things, because it's not something that is so spread, the knowledge, and so many people staying in the darkness and staying in the self-blame because they don't know about these things. So yes, I'm not a counselor, and also I want to give a big trigger warning. Like, these kind of topics, even for me, speaking about it can be triggering. And if maybe you have undiscovered wounds and all these things that have not been spoken about, or you're just on the beginning of discovering what maybe have happened to you, it can be tough, it can be triggering. So please listen to your body, listen to yourself. If something feels too much, stop the video, come back later. Take really good care of yourself, because this is a highly sensitive topic. And when it comes about abuse and trauma and these things, so much stuff is in the subconscious, and hearing about it can create some movement inside of you, and you have to be kind of in a position to be ready for that, or you kind of have to, okay, I can face it now. So take good care of yourself, and then I want to dive into this topic, my friends. So for this episode, I had to make myself a paper, otherwise I'm getting all confused, because it's kind of also an emotional thing for me. And why I'm doing this video now, because I was realizing in the last days, or since I started my YouTube channel, and I have the plan to talk about these things, and I want to speak about these things and share it with many people as possible. So to give some support and encouragement and all these kind of things, I was planning on speaking about some stuff, and I felt this resistance inside of me and this kind of tension, and I was wondering what's going on. And then I realized it's the same. It's one of these reasons that I'm mentioning in a second, why we are not talking about it. And for me, is this a big one? They will not believe me. They will not believe me. They will just think, yeah, she's looking for attention. She's just making it up, basically. And this is such a painful idea. And I was like, and I know where it comes from, and I come to that in a second. But this is why I'm going to do this video now. Like, it cannot be. We cannot stay silent. We have to talk about it. We have to break this taboos and this fear, because it's so wrong. The victims are not wrong. The perpetrators are wrong. So this is why I'm sitting here and talking about this now. And what abuse am I talking about? I mean, there are different kinds of abuse, of course. Sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, mental abuse. And I have experienced all of these. For some of these a few times, and some of these for almost 2 decades. And even after, because we kind of keep going the toxic stuff when we don't heal, because we don't see it, we are not aware of it. So what are the reasons? One big reason is the victims, they don't know it's abuse. They don't realize it's abuse, especially when it happens when it's kids, when they're really young, when it happens from a really young age. You don't have the knowledge about the world that you realize something is abuse. You don't know it. You just know something is wrong, something is not right. And so you don't speak up about it because you don't know what's happening. And it's also normalized. Like when you are a kid, you're growing up in this environment of violence, then it's kind of normal to you. It's just later that kids realize, wait a minute, in other families, it doesn't happen like that. Other families are different. And this just happens a bit later when you come, not even in kindergarten, you really realize it, maybe, but it just usually happens when you start going to school, you go to other, to friends' houses, and you see how they live and how they interact with each other. And then you realize, and you have the comparison, and then you realize something is really, really not right. And so this is a big reason. Also, second, you're dissociated from it. So you don't know it anymore, you don't remember it anymore, you don't realize it. And people who have not experienced it cannot really imagine or understand how strong these mechanisms are of dissociation. And just a really intense example of dissociation to explain to you what I'm talking about. This is dissociation. It's like kind of, let's say there's a rape happening. And in this moment, the victim, it's called in psychology overwhelm. It's a common word, but in this context, overwhelm means a situation exceeds all your coping mechanisms until this point. And let's say you're 5. You have almost no coping mechanisms. You have a few little, but the immensity of that stuff, what happens to you, it exceeds everything so far that in that moment, and this is what people describe, they leave their body and they kind of go to the ceiling and they watch themselves from somewhere else. And they see it's happening to them, but they are not in their body. And this is dissociation. You kind of dissociate, you split apart. And in some really severe cases, these two parts, they don't come back together. So this person completely puts that one part away. And to survive, it's an absolute survival mechanism. And in order to keep going with life. But this does not happen just when there's rape happening. It's also happening with any kind of violence or with any, especially also emotional abuse, when the situation is so intense and keeps going for years, and this fight of the human with all the kind of measures you have and nothing works, then you dissociate. You cannot handle it. It's just too much to handle it. You would have to kind of kill yourself, or you cannot escape. You want the ground to be open and you kind of get swallowed and you disappear forever. But this cannot happen unless you kill yourself. But you cannot kill yourself. You don't want to. You want to live, and the survival instinct is so strong that somehow there has to be a way to deal with it. And this is dissociation. And this is why so many, I think especially when it comes about sexual abuse, so many victims, they just completely forget it for decades. And then sometimes just 20, 30 years later, it kind of like breaks on them that what happened, and then they remember. So this is a big reason why people don't talk about it, because they frankly don't remember it. It's the body keeps the score. I think there's even a book about it. The body keeps the score. The body remembers everything. Our nervous system, the subconscious, the body remembers it. And this is why people get triggered and they don't understand that it's a trigger. They think they're crazy, but the body remembers stuff. And this can be smells. It can be, this common example for a war guy who comes back from war and then there's fireworks. But this is a really, like, it's an example, and this is why people always think trauma has to be war or like really like an earthquake or something like that. But trauma and abuse happens between us in our communities, in the cities, everywhere, in the households, and nobody knows it because people are not talking about it, and the outsiders want to look away because they're like, we don't deal with family business. And so they forgot. Third point is the self-blame. And for people who have not experienced it, for them it's crazy to understand that. Why would you think it's your fault when some violence happened to you? But what we have to understand is this really sinister dynamics and strategies from the perpetrator, from the offender, to keep the victim silent, especially when it comes about sexual abuse. They literally tell them it's also your fault and you have to keep silent about it. And somehow you believe that in a way, because otherwise it wouldn't happen, right? So there must be some truth in it that you somehow are responsible for it as well. So you blame yourself. This is so insane. Like, also the victim offender reversal. It gets even completely reversed. That the victim is out of the sudden the bad guy. And this can be so intense. And it's not like the perpetrator has to, like, you directly say it to you, like it's your fault. But the whole surrounding and the whole experience kind of implies that it's your fault. Otherwise, to other kids, it's not happening. And when it comes about physical abuse, like violence, when you get beaten up, it usually happens out of a conflict or out of a situation that escalates, whatever. Just an example from my life, when I was doing homework with my mother, I actually regularly, or I don't know, every time almost, it ended up in physical violence. Because, I don't know, I was pressured, I was in fear, I was not able to concentrate on what was going on there. And then she was getting angry about me being stupid and blaming me that I'm stupid. I started crying. I could not focus at all on anything what I had to do there. I was kind of highly insane pressure, fear. And then I started crying. It made her even more angry because I was playing the victim. And like, now you start crying. And she kind of completely freaked out, wiped the desk and beat me up and whatever. And this is how homework happened. And it's so funny because it's not funny, but a few years ago when I had to do the tax return for the first time in my life, I had that kind of mini panic attack, and I cried and I wanted to throw the laptop out of the window, and I was like, I cannot do it. I was sitting in my apartment crying because of the tax return. And then I was like, what is happening? Why is that triggering me so much? And then I remembered that, and I made the correlation that this kind of settings of I have to do some administration paper, which I don't really understand thing, but I have some time pressure, highly triggering. And since I knew that, I could more deal with it, and it's like part of the healing journey. But so yeah, we blame ourselves. We think it's our fault. We are stupid, we are wrong, we are too slow, we made a mistake, we dressed inappropriately. This is why we get sexually abused, because, it's somehow our fault. And yeah, it doesn't happen to others, so there must be some truth in it. It's a really strong one. The self-blame, it's a really strong one for people not speaking up about it. Yeah, guilt and shame, next one, also really, really, really strong. The I deserve it. Guilt and shame. Guilt is when you feel like you did something wrong or you did something wrong, and shame is that you are wrong. And this is this deep, especially when it comes about narcissistic abuse, that targets your self-worth. Always, it targets your self-worth, because narcissists are deeply wounded beings. They have so much shame and so much guilt that they cannot handle it, and they have to project it on you, either in romantic relationships or mother to child. Blames it all on the child. You are stupid, you are slow, you are dirty, you are broken, you are whatever, you name it. And then you start believing that I am wrong. A kid starts to believe that. You cannot help it. It's not that you sit in your room and you reflect about it and you're like, my mother said that I'm a piece of shit. Is that right? No, it's not right. I'm going to school. I'm like having friends. No, it's not right. A kid is not doing that. It's going to believe that it's wrong. And also this mechanism of introjection. So, example, narcissist is telling you, narcissistic mother or father or whatever, is telling you that you are lazy slut. For example. Of course, your first reaction is like, this is not right, this is wrong, you kind of get angry and stuff. But somewhere, because you're so open, also your consciousness is so open. As a child, you're not yet developed in your individuality. Your individuality, your personality is not really formed. So you kind of don't know if it's wrong. It could be right. And then what happens is, it's called introjection in psychology, is that you unconsciously take it in order to maintain the relationship to the perpetrator. So, for example, they say this to you, and if you would completely deflect it and say, no, this is not right, then this would mean that your mother, your parent, or whoever is bad. Because they say that to you, right? They abuse you. You would realize, no, that's abuse, that's wrong, they are wrong. But how could you live in a household in this setting? This doesn't work. So what is easier for the child or for the human in any age is to kind of believe it, that they are right, so you can maintain the relationship with them. And this is especially important when you are a child, because you are dependent on them. They have to feed you, they have to give you the bed and everything. You cannot just, And this is so intense. And this is why people are wondering when they are 50, they're talking about themselves. I'm stupid, I'm slow, I'm not worth. All this stuff, it comes from so long ago. And they inherited it as a kind of a truth in order to the mother not be the bad one or the father not be the bad one. It happens also the same way in romantic relationships. And I mean, this is when you think about how much abuse is happening in relationships, and people are not leaving. Even though the suffering is insane, they are not leaving because all of these reasons, but also they believe it's somehow right. And this is especially true when somebody is in a toxic relationship who had abuse already in the childhood, because it's just confirming what they experienced in the past, and it's like a proof of what they subconsciously believe anyway. So to break free from that, it takes a tremendous amount of work and tremendous self-reflection and an honesty to the reality. And this is so tough, guys, to really face what happened, look at it and like, this is what happened. And it's not like it gets all revealed in one day, right? I mean, I'm doing this work intensely for 5 years now. And like I told you, the thing with the tax return just happened 2 years ago. And another realization I had about it, really like a coping mechanism I developed when I was, I think 9, I realized 1 year ago. So it's a really slow process of things getting revealed, and it's such a sensitive thing, the healing journey. We cannot pressure ourselves or pressure others and pressure them. You have to leave your ex-boyfriend, you have to leave your boyfriend, you have to cut the contact with your family, they're toxic for you. You have to you cannot, because this is so complex that you cannot just leave, because there's so much behind it. Next point, what I just mentioned in the beginning, is that no one will believe me and or judge me. And when maybe you have experienced abuse and you never spoke about it, or you are somebody who did not have experienced abuse, cannot imagine that people are telling about their abuse or violence they experience and others would not believe them. But I tell you, my friends, it happens more like that than the other way around, unfortunately. And I learned that really, really early, that you will get judged, you will experience people not believing you, because in this kind of common spirit in the society is this like, it cannot be what must not be. And then we close our eyes, like it, when in the news somebody killed somebody and everybody's like, oh my God, I cannot believe this person was always normal and da-da-da. Or whatever happens, people are always really surprised. And I could bet there were so many signs before, so many signs, and people are not, they don't want to look at it, they don't want to see it, because it also questions their whole world mostly. And this is inside family systems. Let's say you get sexually abused by a family member, which is in itself a huge traumatic experience. And let's say, for example, you kind of don't talk about it because you don't realize it, and you're like, but it's wrong, and I don't know, whatever. And then let's say 2 years later, you open up to another family member. And they don't believe you. They're like, yeah, no, but are you no, this cannot, and maybe you kind of a little bit exaggerating and da-da-da-da. And in psychology, this is called double abuse. And the interesting thing we have to realize is that humans are usually really resilient. They can overcome a lot of things. And we know that as victims, we're sitting here, we're still alive. So we have overcome so much stuff. We are resilient beyond our imagination. But what makes trauma especially bad is that it's not just the trauma itself, it's also the betrayal of you sharing it and nobody believes you, or you get judged. This is like double. And you're being left alone with it. I think I read in an article that this being left alone with it, or nobody believes you, is even has a worse effect on you than the trauma itself. And so this, like in this family dynamics, and then, you have these accomplices. And it's not like they consciously know what happened. Maybe sometimes they do, but maybe sometimes they just kind of close their eyes because it reflects on them. For example, the physical violence I experienced since childhood in my teenage years until I was 14 was happening more or less on a regular basis. And I remember these moments when I went to another family member's home. The only family member I had were my grandma, who I felt a sense of family. I grew up without my physical father and all this kind of stuff, and there was not much family. So my grandma was the only one. And asking me, how is it at home? And let's say one day before there was a physical fight and emotional abuse and like blaming and the narcissistic stuff. And you cover it up and you're like, I don't know, like it was not so peaceful lately. You play it down like insane. If you would tell everything that happened, but you play it down, you're like, yeah, it's not going so well. But then when this person says to you, you have to make a little bit more effort. You're always so angry, and you're always so hard to handle. You have to be a little bit more nice to your mother. And you start to like, what the fuck? And you're like, are you serious? Like da 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 da. And you start to explain yourself, and you kind of, you get angry, of course, because it's like, it's wrong. This is victim blaming. And you get angry, and then the other person says, this is exactly what I mean. This is exactly what I mean. So, okay, so calm down now, please, before we keep talking here. And then she leaves the room, and you're sitting there like, I cannot even believe it. Double abuse. And an impossible situation. Because what it means, like, you have to leave all your family members because they're all betraying you. Really tough one. And also, I have another example no one will believe. I think I was, maybe 12 or something. And in our class, there was this boy who was always really aggressive and strong. He was really strong and had like muscles and was really like physically strong. And the girls were all a little bit, kind of keep the distance. But he was kind of part of the friends group in the class. So he was with us, and we were in this kind of underground canalization thing. And everybody else was gone already. They kind of left, and I was there with him. And it kind of happened, also a thing that I just realized a few years ago. I completely forgot that. And then it happened, he kind of attacked me, tried to rip my shirt off and kind of touched me everywhere and stuff. And I was freaking out. I was like getting in full fight mode. I was scratching, I was fighting. So it was an actual physical fight, and I was so scared. I was like, it cannot happen what might happen. Because when you are in this position of being the victim, you don't know how far the situation is going to be. Maybe your life will change in this moment. You don't know. Maybe you get away, maybe not. So the fear is insane. And I was in complete fight mode. And getting out of there, like, I don't know, like, did I run after them? And I think I told them, and they were kind of laughing and like, yeah, and stuff. And they didn't believe me. They literally didn't believe me. My own friends didn't believe me. And I don't know, I probably didn't even tell my mother, of course, because you don't. You just come to the point you don't. And this is why people don't. Maybe they tried a little bit and they kind of got the slap in the face of disbelief, so they will not do it anymore. Judging. Yeah, the judging is also, you get judged in the way of the people. It's just this example what comes to my mind. This I got sexually abused. Some victim says maybe, and then somebody else says, yeah, but what did you wear? Did you wear a short skirt? As if that would justify it in any way. But it's this, and it's in this society, it's crazy. I see that everywhere. And in conversations I had in my whole life with people, the victim blaming is, the perpetrator protection is crazy. I mean, we see that everywhere. It's not that just in the Catholic Church that these people get protected, and it keeps going, and everybody kind of knows it, but nothing really happens because, we don't want to make too much kind of a drama out of it and stuff. So people wipe it under the carpet because they want to keep their peace, because it creates like discomfort for everybody to face the truth. And we see that on a big scale. And I don't even watch the news. I don't watch the news, but I know what's going on, and I know that very powerful people doing really horrible things, and even if the victims speak out, nobody will believe them, or they're going to be judged or whatever. And this is unfortunately more the case than they get helped. And this is just so sick, and it's so insane. And it makes me so angry that how can this be? How can we not protect each other? How can we not blame the one who is to blame? And yeah, it just makes me crazy. Another point why people are not talking up about it, we don't want to be victims. This, for me, was a big one, because you experience all this violence, but you don't want to be the victim. You don't want to be the one that get pitied at and like, and you want to be normal. You want to be normal. You want to be part of your friends. You want to laugh. You want to be normal. You don't want to be the victim. And this is even in our society. Like back in Germany, when we were younger, the word victim was like a bad word. We said that to shame somebody, like, oh, you victim, da da da. So this is like a bad word even. And so this makes it even harder for victims. They actually are victims to accept that, because they don't want to be it. They want to be normal. They want to be strong. They want to be having everything together and not being the poor, Yes, this is why so many times it's this reaction of disbelief, like, you? No way. And then people think you're making it up. You kind of come around the corner and have a new idea. Oh yeah, I was abused out of a sudden. Like out of a sudden I got abused. Well, why didn't you share it before when it's true? And the dynamic of the wish to hide it is so intense that the victims would hide anything, like physical signs, bruises, you cover that up with makeup. You'll wear long sleeves so nobody will see anything. You cover it up. You don't want to be that. You just want to forget. You want to forget and be normal. You cover everything up. And for me, the big covering up phase started when I was 13. I got sexually abused when I was 13, and a lot of other big life changes happened when I was 13. It was like one of the, I think this year it was so bad. Everything changed after that year. I kind of could somehow deal with the toxicity and the narcissistic abuse until that positive physical violence. But when I was 13, also the whole family situation changed. My stepfather was gone out of a sudden, like nobody saw it coming, and we moved somewhere else. Then this thing happened in summer camp where I just realized, I think 1 or 2 years ago, that it was actual sexual abuse. That I started these coping mechanisms. I started drinking alcohol when I was 13. I started to wear makeup. And I kind of changed the roles, and I did not want to be the victim anymore. So I kind of subconsciously, you start to change the strategy. You like before you're in this, and then you go into the offense. You're like, fuck this. I cannot, like I have to, before I'm going to be the victim again, I'm gonna be the one who has the power. Of course, hugely toxic as well, because you kind of start to do bad things to other humans as well in order to feel somehow powerful. You start to treat people badly. You kind of, you use them because you want to feel this sense of, I have some control. And it's not that other people can just run over me and do whatever they want with me. This is usually when addictions start to evolve. Like for me, it was alcohol many years. Addictions start to evolve because you need some way of dealing with it. You cannot talk about it. You cannot let it out. It's all stored in your system. All the fear, all the anger, all the sadness, hopelessness, all stored in your body. And this is when people start to eat, when they gain weight, and they cannot stop eating, and other people start to smoke. They cannot stop smoking until the rest of their life, because it's never discovered what's the root of it. And this is why I'm starting this YouTube channel and podcast, because I was always somebody, I was always aware we have to find the thing on the root. And this success I had in my own healing journey, in this way I did it, that I was persistent and I want to grab this stuff by the root, because in order to live my free life, to be free, to be me, I have to remove that what hinders me. So, yeah, this is why I'm sitting here now, basically. Also the last one, and of course the list is not complete. There are many other reasons, but this is just the points that I realized for myself. Fear of punishment is also a big one, especially when authorities are involved. Let's say abused by a teacher or another authority figure. There is very high likely that there's going to be some punishment for you speaking up. Either you have to leave the school, whatever, I don't know. This kind of settings are so, the power dynamic, it plays out so strongly that the victims are not speaking out because they lose their job. There's some form of punishment from them. And also because of, and I think this is especially true for sexual abuse, they are threatened by the by the offender, that you're going to lose your job if you open your mouth. And this is a very effective way of keeping people silent, but it's when you can achieve all these points, that the victim feels guilty, dissociated, blames themselves, thinks that nobody will believe them, they're gonna stay silent and you can do whatever you want with them. And if that starts from a very young age, kids are so open to manipulation, and for them adults are like gods, they don't know anything else. Especially when they're really young, their close circle is everything for them, so they believe it. This is so horrible. And I just also listed some signs that there are when people got abused. So for example, isolation. When people out of a sudden, they don't go to gatherings anymore, they don't go to friend circles anymore, they stop doing the stuff they did, like they want to be for themselves. This is a big sign. Of course, signs of depression. Not leaving the house anymore. The apartment looks like a mess, let's say. Because for me personally, in my most depressive times, my apartment looked like a bomb was hitting it before. Everything was everywhere. And I did not have the capacity to clean it up at all. I did not even have the capacity to brush my teeth in the evening. I was just like, you cannot. Everybody who has had depression knows that maintaining the daily life is a huge struggle. Keeping your emotions somehow in order is a huge struggle. And addictions, of course, big sign. I think nobody has any addiction for no reason. Why? Why would a healthy human, out of a sudden come to the conclusion, oh yeah, I'm gonna drink, I'm gonna smoke, I'm gonna take cocaine, whatever. It doesn't make any sense. It's an escape. I'm a believer of that. It's always an escape. There's some deeper wound or something people escape in addictions. And this is also a point that comes to my mind right now, is that when you are in a violent and abusive household, you start to create compensation strategies, of course. For me, that was alcohol when I was 13. It was this kind of, I think that started when I was 9. This sugary condensed milk they have in the supermarket, and I got addicted to that, and I bought it, and I went to my bed, and I was lying in my bed and kind of sucking this sugary condensed milk out of the thing. And this calmed me somehow down. And of course you gain weight. It has like 1,000 calories, this thing, and I gained weight. And I was always a normal shaped girl. But then out of a sudden, when I was like 12, 13, 14, also the alcohol, of course, I gained weight. And then it happens, you get blamed at home for your compensation strategies. So I was fat shamed, like literally body shamed constantly, like fatty. She called me fatty. And other words I cannot even repeat here, but you get blamed for that you do to escape the pain. Also the alcohol, she was like, yeah, go drink your alcohol and go whatever. And so the things you do in order to kind of somehow survive and deal with this stuff, they get thrown at you as well. It's so sick. It's so sick. Another sign, of course, change in behavior, personality. So when somebody really changes and you don't see this, you don't know why, it can something bad behind it. And we should not take these things lightly, like and put it away and stuff. I think, I don't know, like this is that's what I'm here for, and that's also why I'm doing this channel, is to create, like, guys, we have to have some compassion with each other. We cannot blame the one for being fat. We cannot blame the other one for being an alcoholic. We cannot blame the other one for being quiet and just playing computer games or whatever. We need to stop the blaming, because all these things, they are coming from somewhere. It's not, we have to, or rather ask, why are you playing just computer games the whole time? Or why are you drinking so much? And even though the person maybe does not realize yet, because of course when you dissociate it, or me when I was in my alcoholic phase, I had a friend telling me, like, you kind of drink a lot, right? And I was offended. I was like, what? What are you talking about? You should loosen up a little bit. You should kind of relax. You should go a little bit to the party as well. And da-da-da-da. So I was not seeing it. Even though the proof was there. The amount of alcohol I drank was, you cannot lie about it. It's like proof. The wine bottles in the kitchen in the morning. When you drink 2 wine bottles in the evening before you go to bed crying. This is proof. It's standing there, but still you don't see it. You don't want to see it because you want to be normal. This desire for being normal and not being a depressive, traumatized piece of whatever, because you're so afraid of that, because you think it confirms that what you always have been told. Because you don't see the dynamic behind it yet. You don't see yet that you are traumatized, that this what happened to you did traumatize not you, but your nervous system. Your body is traumatized. It looks for help, for relief, and desperately. And we, in our minds, we kind of think everything should go on. I left when I was 18. Everything should be fine by now. But it's not. It stays. When we don't deal with it, it stays. And when we don't deal with it, we give it further to our kids. Trauma travels through families. And I know where this stuff comes from my mother. I know it. I probably don't know everything. But I know where it's coming from. And I realized so many things about the family lineage. And there are many things they cannot be really blamed for. My grandmother was born in the middle of the Second World War, for example. My great-grandmother had really, really bad experiences with Russians. I don't want to go into detail, but you can maybe imagine what I mean. This trauma, and not dealt with, travels through unconsciously in the behavior, what they're doing when the one is beating up the one, the next one is beating up the next one. But also energetically, subconsciously, it's going further. It's like, it's an energy. It goes, what somebody does not resolve, it goes subconsciously into the child, even already in the womb. And then later, of course, in the behavior. And this is why in so many families, for example, when they don't talk about emotions, or some parents, they would not allow themselves to feel anger or to have emotions at all. The kid kind of takes all that subconscious suppressed stuff and expresses it, because every system strives for balance, and a family is a system. So when the one suppresses something, the other one kind of expresses it more. And this is another different interesting topic about this dynamic of what we subconsciously give to others. It happens also in romantic relationships, for example, in the empath and narcissist. The one suppresses these things and the other one suppresses these things, and both kind of accelerate the suppressed stuff from the other. It's fascinating in a way, but also, it's really, we have to learn about these things. We have to know about these things, because otherwise we cannot heal from it when we don't even understand and see what is going on. You cannot sit there and say, I want to heal, but from what? You first have to know this stuff. And this is like such a journey. Like, guys, I'm telling you, I'm doing this for 5 years intensely. And I'm sure there's still subconscious stuff that my being did not yet reveal, because it's painful. It was too painful. I have to learn more. I have to create even more self-love with myself, to be really there for myself without any blame, for any compensation strategy. This is the only way we can get rid of it, of all these things that we want to get rid of. We cannot, we repeat this stuff. We blame ourselves, So we do the same stuff that the people who abused us did. And this creates more trauma from ourselves. And this is why I'm sure also so many people like stuck in that, because we continue this and subconsciously believe we deserve it. That's why we do it. But it's not true at all. We are all beautiful beings, beautiful, pure human beings. We were all once babies, and with these open eyes and like, wow, this world, and little kids and playing and loving animals and being kind to each other, helping each other on the playground. This is us. And all the other stuff, it's not us. And we have to get rid of it. We have to get rid of this stuff that it's not us, in order to also like help the planet. We cannot be traumatized walking around with our addictions and then somehow make a change. It's not possible. We have to get in our strength, and our strength lies in our core, in our deepest heart that is untouched, this core, and we have to find that again. And in order to do that, we have to face, unfortunately, the pain and the trauma and the reality of all these things that happen to us. And yeah, before I'm getting too long, maybe I want to conclude the video with, I want to maybe repeat the points. So dissociation is one reason that you don't talk about it. You don't know it's abuse. You blame yourself. You feel guilt and shame. Guilt like you did something wrong, or shame, you are inherently somehow wrong. You deserve it. No one will believe you. You don't want to be the victim. You just want to be normal. And you are having fear of punishment. These are the points that I came up with today. And I want to conclude this video with just completely assuring you that whatever happened to you, you did not deserve it. Whatever happened to you, nothing that you did, whatever you did not justify anything that happened to you badly. No one deserves to be beaten up, to be sexually abused, to be emotionally abused, to be blamed, body shamed, being left alone, abandoned, neglected. Nobody believes that. We are all, in our heart, pure beings. And I want you to be sure of that this is the absolute truth. This is not a truth or a truth that I kind of made up. This is the truth. Every human being has this inherent, untouchable worth. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. So the universe saw a point of you being here. So there must be a reason you being here. And even if you don't know the reason, or maybe you don't even believe that you're worth living. There were so many points in my life where I thought the world would be better off without me. And I wanted to really end it. This is not true. And we can get free of it. We can get free of the self-blame. We can get free of the shame, the guilt. But there's this saying, the only way out is the way in. We have to get in. And this is what I did the last 5 years. And it worked. And in this whole channel, I want to give the tools, the knowledge and the experience that I have to help others to go their own way of healing. Because every way of healing is so different. Nobody can copy my way, because I'm a completely different person. The stuff that I experience is so different from your stuff. You have to find your own path. And the stuff that I want to give here is the tools and inspiration of the things, how I did it, that's persistently, and I got up all the time again. I fell, I got up, I fell, I got up. And inspiration about things that I did, because maybe something resonates with you and you're like, maybe this could help me as well. Guys, all right. I think this is it. I thank you for listening. I thank you for listening and being open and facing topics like that, because so many people are not doing it. They're not facing it, and we cannot blame anybody for anything. And if a person does not want to face it until they die, it's completely okay, in a way that it's their decision. If they cannot face the pain, they cannot face the pain. And this is also the perpetrators. They were in our lives, the abusers, the offenders. I'm using these words in the context of this thing that happened to you. They are not in general an offender, but in this dynamic of abusing you, they were. Usually they don't see. They don't really see. They were so hurt themselves that they don't see any other way than hurting others, consciously or unconsciously. But this is unfortunately how it gets passed on. So yeah, I want to leave this video with a kind of call to compassion. Compassion for each other, compassion for yourself, for whatever your coping mechanisms are. Have compassion. Is something in you that wants to heal and that wants to make it better, that wants to be so-called normal, but just can use the ways that it learned. So yes, my friends, having compassion and kindness when we walk around in the street, before we get angry at somebody, stop for a moment and think, we don't know what they have been through. Not today, or maybe not in their past life. We don't know anything. We don't know anything. People looking at me, they would not think in 1 million years that this stuff happened to me, that happened to me. And don't believe like a pretty face or some makeup or some quirky person who's like really funny and like the social butterfly. This can be all a mask. It can be all a mask. It was a mask for me, and it takes a tremendous amount of effort to maintain these masks in this try to fit in. Yeah, maybe we are not supposed to fit in. Maybe we are just who we are. We don't need to fit in anywhere. What we need is compassion and love. And this is what I'm sending you, and I hope I made everything clear. And if you have any questions, or if you have anything to say, or you want to share anything, like this video is about speaking up. So whatever you want to share, please write it in the comments. Like, take this step of nobody cares what I want to say, and like, I'm gonna write it down anyway now, because she said I'm gonna have to write it anyway. And yes, then we can kind of create at least this feeling of not being alone, and we're in this together, and there are so many people who have experienced that and they don't talk about it. And if we kind of, yes, we can create a field of not feeling alone with that, and start the healing journey, or go on the healing journey, whatever you stand. So I wish you a beautiful day, my friends. Take good care. Breathe, take a good breath, make a cup of tea, a hot cup of tea, sit there without any music, without anything. Take the cup of tea and like maybe put it to your heart. The warmth on your heart is really, really good. And then just appreciate yourself for coming this far, because it's not, how's this English word? Self-explanatory? I don't know. So it's special that you're still here. When you have been through a lot, sitting here still listening to that, it's special, and you can be really proud about that. So you're a little warrior of life, and I'm wishing you all the best, and see you in the next video, my dears. Bye bye. Namaste.